there are stories having to do with celebrities that corporate underwriters adore because they guarantee high ratings, whether they have any impact on many people's lives at all. Hence the endless coverage of the Michael Jackson trial, or the endless coverage of a Scott Peterson trial, which was about a man who murdered his wife. He became almost a celebrity. The story became very obsessive for people. The viewership, particularly we're talking television, was enormous, and the advertisers love it because there's nothing political about it. That's the way that corporate influence gets felt, encouraging reporters, particularly in television, I think, to stay away from the controversial political stories and stick with the stuff that, you know, is really just about an individual. There are other criteria too, of course, and that has to do with sort of the ongoing big stories of our time, like global warming, or what the White House wants us to call, climate change, or peak oil, the end of increasing amounts of oil supplies. These are critical stories to the majority of people on the planet, and yet they're somehow not media friendly because they don't have a hook this week, or they don't have, a drama in Washington taking place around them. Another example, well, this is a little bit different, but another example of the sort of coverage, the shallow coverage that we're talking about, is Condoleezza Rice, Secretary of State, elevated from her position as National Security Advisor in the first Bush term. There was 1 minute of attention to the confirmation hearing process that she had to go through, but then everything's forgotten about her history, her record, her past, having lied to the 9/11 Commission clearly about what her administration, her office in charge of security, knew and did in advance of the attacks of September 11th. More interestingly even than that, though, is the institutional memory we lack about characters like this. Here's a woman who we know a few things about. We know she was for 10 years on the board of the Chevron Oil Corporation. We know she cut the deals that helped Chevron secure access to oil fields in the Caspian Basin and all over the former Soviet republics. She goes on a trip with George W. Bush in which they meet and talk at length with Vladimir Putin of Russia. And we're told that what is being discussed is democracy and human rights and relations with Iran. What we need to know, and what we need journalists who will ask, is, aren't oil contracts being discussed here? We'd be very surprised if you weren't discussing oil contracts, given that Russia's stake in the oil fields of Iraq is being debated right this minute. Russia's relationship with Iran, a major oil producer, is of major concern to U.S. oil companies right now, because both countries are thinking of switching for oil trading from the dollar to the euro. There are massive oil issues at stake right now, and you want to tell me these weren't discussed in any of these negotiations? This is where, when you have journalists that are just flying in on the presidential plane and who maybe don't know all there is to know, or don't know all they could know about Condoleezza Rice, or maybe know only that she had an oil tanker named after her and they think it's a joke, really do the public a disservice.